Sure, absolutely. I'm Roberto Riadigos. I am the sales manager for American Portfolio Mortgage. We're in Coral Gables, and I've been in the mortgage industry since the late 90s. My team and I, we help people buy and refinance homes. And at the end of the day, what sets us apart is just that the experience. There's not much that we haven't come across. Our ability to find solutions, our ability to just think outside the box and find the right loan for each person. Things happen, the market changes, programs are always changing. One of the things that's really helped me is working with American Portfolio, just the program, the programs available, the vast, robust menu of programs that are there. There's something for everybody, and that's key, especially in South Florida. You have a lot of people with unique situations, and sometimes they don't fall into the cookie cutter, being able to show income or assets or whatever the case is. And so to be able to have some alternative programs is always key.
And, like you said, you came into the business in the late 1998, right? In the late 90s, right? You said, so that's a lot of experience. So you have seen a lot of ups in the market and a lot of down in the market. So for you to be at American Portfolio Mortgage, the way I look at it, it's like you could go anywhere, with your resume, your experience, your accolades, you could go anywhere, but you chose them. And you chose them, I bet, for a big reason, because you know that they can do things that other lenders or banks cannot do and cannot provide a service. If you can talk more about that, Robert.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, the group that I'm with, I've been with for 3 years now. We were part of another company, and the guys that I work for, I've known them for over 20 years. So when I made the decision, something about my background is I managed for a long time. So originating loans as a full-time myself hasn't always been the case. I always had branches, or I had an area, or whatever the case was. So I was managing a lot of people. And so my production wasn't the priority. I made that shift a few years ago to where now I manage a small team. And so that's allowed me to really focus more on origination. So when I knew that I was going to be focusing on my own originations, I needed to go and make sure that I was aligned with the right people that have, their finger on the pulse of not only the mortgage industry, but South Florida. As you know, Miami is unique in its own. So to be able to have that success, I needed to, success breeds success. So I needed to align myself with the right people. I found that we made a move to American Portfolio at the beginning of this year, specifically because of the need to have that solution for all customers, that A to Z type of lending, to be able to not say, hey, I'm good at this, but for this other program, I can't help you, or whatever the case was. Yeah. That's not the case. Whether, somebody has, a 800 credit score and they can document their income and have money in the bank, that's great. A lot of lenders can do that. But what happens when the person can't document what they're reporting isn't there? There has to be alternatives to being able to get into a loan. And so I found that with American Portfolio. Some of the things that I've done this year, I would have never been able to close at my last employer. So that's really what caused the move, and it's been very successful.
So you get to service your clients better. That's what I'm listening here, because you have more tools.
Absolutely.
To do so. So, Robert, how did you hear about Second Chance Credit? How did we come about?
So I know specifically, I met you about 10 years ago. Yeah. I was working at Wells Fargo in Doral, and you would do your visits, and that's how I met you. Where we connected was probably throughout time later, either through events and that repetition. And then I just remember sitting down with you one time and starting to, and to be blunt, credit repair, there's a lot of people that out there that say you have a lot of competition. Yeah. What set you apart from me, and I say this over and over, is the results. Anybody can tell you, I'm gonna help them. I'm gonna help your client. I'm gonna do this. And with you, it was never about pricing, it was about the results. And that to me was important because a lot of people come out, oh, I could do it, and it's only going to cost this. Well, it doesn't matter if you can't, if you charge less, but you don't get the results, it's a waste of time. And right now, time is critical because they missed opportunities. And so, when I look back over the 10 years that I've known you, I have numerous clients that I can, bring up names, and you'll probably remember, that have closed. Just this year alone, I've gotten several closings that happened with people that I put in your path, probably a year, 6 months, whatever the case. Everybody's different. So I know that some you've been able to turn around quicker than others, but again, that's their unique situation. And most importantly, friends and family. You've helped my friends and family, which goes beyond clients, because those are people that you're changing their lives. And sometimes people don't realize how critical credit truly is, not just on the mortgage side, but just when it comes right now. I'm dealing with 2 kids in college, so helping them establish credit, letting them understand why I'm helping them open certain credit cards, and why I have certain things in store for them in terms of how they should plan, and what cards they should and shouldn't use, and how they get paid. I'll be honest with you, my dad was a great dad, he still is, but we never sat down when I was 18 and had that conversation. So I made sure to do that with my kids now.
Well, and the thing is, Robert, and you've seen my presentations, and I always start the presentation with the same example, same opening line. The United States of America does not want to teach us about finances or credit. They do not. That's not their best of interest. Because remember, the United States of America runs on debt. The more debt, bad debt that we have, the more money they make. So if they educate us, Robert, the consumers, they won't be making that money. We're going to mess up their business plan. And it's very successful. So I know that you and I are very sports fan, right? We're passionate for the Dolphins. We could be the best athlete in the world, but if we don't know how to play the game of football, if we don't know the rules, how can we execute? How can we be the very best? So I wouldn't blame so much your dad. Who taught him?
Right.
The streets, the errors. So how's he going to teach you something? Thank God now. And that's one of the things that I appreciate from you, Robert, is that you go above and beyond for your clients. Because when a client does not qualify for a mortgage, you don't do what typical mortgage brokers or mortgage bankers or mortgage professionals do, that they just throw them out and say, look, I can't help you. I'll move on to the next one. You actually take your time to explain and educate your clients if they qualify or they do not. And then you provide them that solution. And with that, Robert, now you become the mortgage professional for life for them. And I've seen that.
No, absolutely. And the other thing is some of the clients hasn't been that they won't qualify. Is that you've helped them get into a better program. Because I could have done a loan that might have been at higher cost or at higher rates. And they still would have been able, but by going through you and getting corrected, they were able to save thousands of dollars. And that to me is a critical piece. Unfortunately, I've had people that I have referred to you and chose not to do it, and then later came back and they ended up closing. And I have one in particular, and it happened, and they ended up paying almost, it was like $9,000 in fees that could have been avoided had they have fixed their credit. And they got into the house. I did, I'm happy for them for that. But if they would have just paid attention, spent, not even a tenth of what that would have cost them, and they could have fixed their credit. So, we provide solutions, we offer solutions, and hopefully the consumer can really trust in what we're directing and follow through with the plan to put themselves in a better position.
But Robert, you practice delayed gratification, because you just said right now, there's clients that qualify, that right now could get the loan done, but I tell them, go to Chris so you could get something better.
Right.
Very few people in your industry will ever do that, because they, you eat what you kill, Robert.
Sure.
Right? But you're not doing that. You're saying, you know what, Mr. Customer, I want the best for you. Even if I cannot make a commission, even if I cannot bring this to my family right now, I'm going to do my job the best way possible that is geared to your benefit, Mr. Client, not towards my benefit. And I think that speaks worlds about you. And that's why you get to cherry pick where you're going to work, Robert. You're not just there knocking on the door and begging. So kudos to that, brother. That's one of the things I've always gotten from you. And as you know, it's one of my mentors that I practice myself as an example of you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that.
So how has Second Chance Credit contributed to your business growth, Robert?
Well, first and foremost, the ability to close loans that otherwise I wouldn't have, or close them in a better position for the buyer, because at the end that leads to referrals. So that's a big part of, you know, my business. I don't get leads, I have to create them, and I create them by, you know, having, you know, raving fans, wowing the clients that I do work with. So I've had clients, I have one client in particular that we closed, that you helped, we ended up closing, and then she referred her niece, and I'm actually closing her niece now. That's how my business gets built. So had that first client, the end, not been able to find a solution, not be able to close, she would have never been in a position to refer her niece. So without question, I think that the partnership of being able to help people better their credit, to them being able to secure financing, has been an asset to us both.
Have you also noticed that after the clients getting their mortgage, going through us with, you know, the credit and financial help, have you noticed a big change and shift in their minds, in their spending, in their habits afterwards, Robert?
Chris, I'll be honest with you. I don't, my conversations afterwards are more, hi, how you doing? How's the house? Questions about their statements. I don't really go back into their finances, but I tend to believe that, yes, there is a mind shift, just the especially for a first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
First-time home buyer has to now all of a sudden take into account, I got to replace a hot water heater, I got to do this, I got, you know, whatever happens that maybe they didn't deal with when they were renting. So I think that their mindset on how they look at their finances definitely has to change. And I'm sure when it comes to tax time and they have, you know, different write-offs that they didn't have before they owned a home,
Yeah.
you know, helps them as well. So yeah, I think as a whole, when you become a homeowner, your financial outlook changes without question.
Changes a bit. Robert, right now we're August 2022. What tips and what advice can you give to our audience and future audiences that we're gonna have?
Save money. You know, that's probably the best advice. I mean, it's an easy thing to say, but I'll tell you, I'm one that loves to go out and have a nice meal. I'm one who loves to. There's one thing is creating memories. I have 4 kids, so creating memories is a big thing, and I've always lived by what can I do to create memories. But sometimes you don't have to be as lavish as you know. Splurge is one thing, but also keep in mind what you're spending, because, you know, right now, August 2022, we don't know what 2023 is going to look like. You know, the recession talk.
Yeah.
We saw what happened with gas. We see what's happening with inflation. Build that savings account. That's probably the best advice I can give people is, you know, we know as a rule of thumb, you always want to have 6 months of your expenses is for a rainy day, but maybe make it 12. You know, make sure that you have that money there available. So save and invest, and if you're not sure, find a professional that can guide you on where to invest and what to do.
For the sake of this, last question I just gave you, for you, what was the hardest amount of money to be saved? How much was, you know, the hardest amount of money for you to save at the beginning?
You know, it's especially when I started my career and having, you know, gradually having 4 kids, it was hard to save. it was hard to save because you had a lot of expenses. So really, working with my wife and trying to figure out what the best plan was and putting away, it was never, you're never going to be able to put in a large, depending on your situation, what comes out, but putting in those large amounts are difficult. It's that little bit that gradually builds. And you may think that, hey, what's $10 or $20, but $10 or $20 a week builds and or whatever that number is. So I guess to answer your question, the hardest part is just to start, is to actually have a plan. And that's the biggest thing, is have a plan of what you're going to put away. If you get paid every 2 weeks, then every 2 weeks you have to have a dollar amount. And maybe that amount is only $20, but eventually you'll turn it to 50, to 100, to whatever that number is. But if you're consistent and you're disciplined, that'll grow.
You create great habits, from the beginnings.
Absolutely.
That's one of the things I teach the youngs, 18-year-old, 19-year-old. I'm like, you have to start with a great habit, because once you start making a lot of money, you already have those great habits already installed. And one of my first mentors, when I was 18 years old, he told me, Chris, the hardest amount of money you will ever save, once you get to that number, everything's going to be so easy afterwards. He goes, saving $10,000.
Okay.
Right. I was like, oh my God, like, how am I going to do that? That's just crazy. And I was getting paid not what we're paying high schoolers coming out of school right now. We're getting paid $5, $6 an hour. So $10,000, it was like, holy smokes, how are we going to do that? But I remember when I met that goal, I was like, oh, wow. And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, I have a blueprint. I know how to do this. And sometimes, Robert, like you and I know, there's curveballs that happen in life.
Sure.
But once you already know how to set up that and create those good habits, everything changes. And that's one of the things that I preach to the clients. A lot of the clients that you send me, I tell them, yes, credit is important, but you need to have the money set up, because once we get you those results, I'm going to be calling Robert, and Robert's going to be like, all right, you have your down payment, and we got to make sure that you do, so you can take advantage of all these great opportunities that are here and will be here in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I've had many clients over the years that have come back to me where I did loans where I paid off all their debt and were completely, I'm talking 80, $100,000+ of bills. And they've come back to me and they racked them all back up. And it's that lack of discipline is what it costs it, so yeah, it's critical to have that, without question.
Robert, thank you very much, my brother, for your time. Thank you very much for all this, nuggets, golden nuggets that you pour. Thank you very much for being one of my dear friends, my mentor, but also for helping my firm with, the honor to help out your clients. I appreciate you, brother, and I love you a lot.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. This has been great. A lot of fun. Great seeing you. Great talking to you.
Great seeing you, my brother.